Hey everybody, welcome back. I hope you're having a great Wednesday. Just going to tell you a quick story. Not sure if it's even a good idea that I tell you this story. I don't know what the statute of limitations are on these things, but here it goes anyway. So when I was in high school, I had some good friends. At least I thought they were great. And we used to have lots of fun together. And we lived in this quiet, semi-rural neighborhood. And so it was, well, at night it was very dark. There was like no street lights, which was kind of awesome. And we would love to go out and roam around and hide from cars and things like that. But that's a different story. One night, we're all hanging out and we're a little bit bored, and somebody comes up with some suggestions for how we could do something that would be a little bit more exciting. And I don't remember how it got started, but the answer came to like, hey, let's moon the next car that comes by. And so after some discussion, this was agreed upon by the group, about 5 of us, that this is a great idea. So we went down by the road and waited, and soon we saw some car headlights coming down the road. And so we got ourselves all into a nice line and got ourselves all situated in position and ready for a good mooning. And, you can Google that if you're not sure what that means. And so the car comes by and immediately everybody, drops the pants and we're all, kind of laughing and snickering and thinking this is really hilarious. And we look back right as the car is passing us, and we see across the top of the car that there are these lights that are red and blue colored, and there's a big star symbol on the door. And one of the guys says, well, bleep, it's the cops, is what they said. You know what I mean? And immediately what we did was what you always do when you've done something that you're not really supposed to do and you have a guilty conscience and you just came in contact with law enforcement, is we scattered. Like, we just ran for it. We just, like, every man for himself, immediate instinct. We ran into the bushes. We ran into the darkness, right? We ran up the hill into the next 2 neighbors' house. We just all ran in separate directions. I don't know if any 2 of us stayed together, but we just flat out scattered and ran into the darkness. And of course, lived to have fun again another day. No problems resulted. I'm not even sure the police noticed. But nonetheless, we didn't wait to find out. Well, this is an important concept and picture, if you can imagine scattering, because this is what happens to the church in the book of Acts in chapter 8. And it's this kind of an interesting picture, right? Because the church has been doing amazing things in Jerusalem. Things are going incredibly well. It just keeps growing. It just keeps getting bigger. There's all kinds of exciting things happening. And then Stephen gets arrested, and then he gets killed, like just kind of, spontaneously stoned and killed by this group. And when that happens, it says persecution breaks out. And we'll read it in Acts chapter 8, verse 1. It says, Saul agreed that the killing of Stephen was good. And on that day, the church of Jerusalem began to be persecuted, and all of the believers, except the apostles, were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. So immediately, this awesome church of thousands of people, suddenly it scatters. And it's kind of interesting to note that the word church in the Greek, in the language of the New Testament that it's written in, is a word that literally just simply means to gather together, to come together. It's a gathering. So the church is meant to gather, but now it's scattering, which kind of begs the question of, is this supposed to be happening? Are they supposed to react differently? Well, if we keep reading a couple of verses, it says this. Some religious people buried Stephen and cried loudly for him. Saul was also trying to destroy the church, going from house to house, dragging out men and women and putting them in jail. And wherever they were scattered, they told people the good news. So you've got this kind of what seems to be the destruction, the ruin of this church gathering and coming together, and now it's scattering. But what is happening when it is scattering? Everywhere it goes, it's scattering, but it's coming back together to share the good news. And in fact, what's really amazing about this picture is, as bad as this sounds, this comes right back to what Jesus said at the very beginning of Acts of what the church is supposed to do to begin with. If you go all the way back to Acts chapter 1, verse 8, you can see this. It says, and when the Holy Spirit comes to you, you will receive power. You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all of Judea, in Samaria, and in every part of the world. Like, literally, he's saying that this is the goal. We're going to get this message out. This good news is going to go out. And so sometimes in life and in church and in ministry and in God's plan, there's a time for just gathering and for growth and for things to be good and to be great. And then sometimes there's this time for scattering. And God isn't past scattering his church to take the good news, the gospel, the story of what Jesus has done to places it hasn't been before. And while we would much rather be able to gather, even right now in this time, to be able to gather together in our normal and our usual way, God has us all scattering in some different places. And maybe you're just scattered by sheltering in place and you're just at home, or maybe you're essential and you're still off at work, but we're all in this weird sense of like, what's going to happen to the church? And the answer is nothing's going to happen to it. It's going to keep doing what it's meant to do because people are the church. We are the church. And now we have an opportunity to scatter, and soon enough we'll have a chance even to gather in smaller groups to be able to share that good news of what Jesus has done, his death, his resurrection, and his coming back someday as well. We've got this incredible good news for a time of anxiety, worry, stress, fear, uncertainty of the future. And yet we have this incredible promise in God and who he is, that even in times of persecution, in times of scattering, we have something to talk about. And it's not meant to be great theological talk and conversation, meaning heady intellectual stuff. What Jesus said was, you're going to give your testimony, which just means you're going to talk about what you witnessed, what you saw me do. And the same is true for us, that this is a time of just saying, man, here's what Jesus has done in my life, and here's what he wants to do in yours. So who are you scattered with right now? Who do you have opportunity to share that incredible good news with? Because that is also a way in which Jesus grows his church and we show ourselves to be his people. We get to share the good news, even in the midst of scary times. You guys, I hope you have a great Wednesday evening. Look forward to seeing you back here.